everybody, and welcome to the Living Well podcast with Liv Hill. I am so very excited today to have my friend and a current client, Wendy Knight, with us on today's podcast. This is going to be so much fun. Wendy is just the best of the best, and I'm excited for her to share her story with you guys today. So, Wendy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited.
We're so excited. Wendy started coaching with me, and I think when we first started coaching, we didn't know each other, but now I think we're related.
Right? We totally could be.
I know every time we get on a call, we're like, this person, she's like, oh, I know them. And so at one point, we're going to say this person, and it's going to be like, yeah, they were at family reunion last year.
Right. Totally.
Even though we both live hundreds of miles apart. So welcome, Wendy.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
So, Wendy, we'll get started. If you want to tell us a little bit about your background, what you do for a living, what life is like for you on a daily basis. Give us some insight.
Okay. Well, I live in Northeast Texas in the Paris area. I have been in nursing now since 2015 when I graduated. I worked in the hospital setting for 7 years total. And then for nearly going closer to 2 years now, I've been doing hospice nursing. I love it. It is just, I truly feel like it's a calling, and it's such a blessing to me to be able to help people at such a hard time of their lives with them, the patients, as well as their families. So it's something that I truly, truly love and feel like God just put me where I'm at right now for sure. And so, I've just kind of, between that, I've always dealt with my health and kind of yo-yoed back and forth. Before I went into nursing, I worked in an office setting at a bank. And so I was not having a lot of activity, was, sitting for a lot of the day. Even though I was working hard, I was sitting a lot of the day. Then I went from that to being a nurse on my feet for 12 hours out of the day. And then switched back to hospice, which is not on my feet as much, even though it is still, a stressful type job. So, I've kind of always struggled with going back and forth and trying to be healthy, and then not getting to be healthy, being active, and then not having the time to be active. So that's where I was really at, and just really struggling with some things and the way that I felt when I got in touch with you last week, or last year, excuse me. And I just really feel like it was God that just kind of opened the door and kind of put you in my Facebook feed. So. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I grew up, I was homeschooled. I don't know how much else you want to know about my background, but that's kind of where I come from. So,
yes. So she is hospice nurse, and that's a job, that's a ministry, and that is a job. And a lot of times, and we'll kind of get into this further on the episode, Wendy doesn't know what is going to come from day to day. She may get a call in the middle of the night. She may get a call, to go a different direction in the middle of the day, and it's a high stress situation. It's a high emotionally taxed situation too.
Definitely.
So we've got a lot of things that we navigate through and work through just because you don't have a traditional 9-to-5 type situation.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Not at all.
So, yeah.
And you're also very active in your church, if you want to tell about that.
I am involved. I teach our adult Sunday school class. I've been doing that for probably getting close to 15 years now. I've done that, which I love. I love teaching. I love Bible history. I also am on our praise team, so praise and worship. And I try, if there's a need, I try my best to step in if I'm able to, and it's something that I'm able to do. But I love learning about Bible history. I've been on several trips, that involve learning about Bible history and that type of thing overseas. And that's just kind of something I'm very passionate about, is learning our foundations and our principles, and I love to teach that to other people. So that's kind of, anything that I can help and step up to be a part of, I love to try to do that. So we have a small congregation, so there's some gaps to fill some days. So.
Some days doing a little bit of all of it.
Yes.
But that's really, Wendy, where your heart is, where your passion is in
yes.
ministry. You love
Hmm.
ministry. We get on our weekly check-in calls and we talk about nutrition for a while and we talk about ministry for a while. And
Yes.
uh, you ministered, we'll get into this, but you just recently ministered to somebody through hospice, and
Yes.
it was a family member, and come to find out they had a history with the church years and years ago.
Hmm.
And then also you're ministering with Princess Within. And so let's kind of jump off from that Princess Within,
Yes.
because before that was one of those moments, and here I have cold chills already.
Hmm.
That was one of those moments where, not this most recent Princess Within conference, but the one that was several years ago, where you
Hmm.
started to have some ahas about the way that your current health was impacting the way you
Yeah,
ministered, and how you wanted to make some changes, with how that was
definitely.
important to you. So if you want to walk through kind of that, and then also uh, I'll set you up to compare that you just went to Princess Within Ministry again, and you really then came away with like some huge ahas. So if you kind of want to
Yes.
walk through all of that, I think it's such an interesting story.
Sure. So, when we are in our normal congregation, we're comfortable and we don't notice things as much as when we are kind of out of our comfort zone. And so I really think that that's what happened. It's been about going on 3 or maybe 4 years ago. The last conference that I was able to participate in, which we go in and we had a day with mom here in Texas. If anybody's familiar with the Princess Within Prison conferences with Sister Reinhardt, and I loved it. It's just such a blessing to be able to be there. But within myself, I was not comfortable because I didn't have the stamina, the energy. Um, I was self-conscious about things within myself that really truly hindered me in how much I was able to have my normal outgoing personality and be able to just reach out to people and talk to them and just, being uncomfortable in my own skin, kind of, on top of not having the physical stamina that, being in a prison for 12, 13 hours, requires. And so what that did, it got me out of my comfort zone where I was, normal church services and stuff. And it really made me realize, hey, I need to be paying attention to my health. I was getting close to my 40th birthday, and I was just like, we have all these health problems that run in my family, all of the things: diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, all of them. And so it was really an eye opener. And I really truly believe God convicted me of not taking better care of my health and of myself, and because of what I was doing to myself, I couldn't minister to others like I really needed to.
Right.
And that really kind of got me really in deep prayer and reflecting on what the best way to go about that change was. I didn't want to do fad diets. I had tried them in the past and they hadn't worked for me, or they would work for so long and then I would get burned out or just, give up or whatever because I wasn't seeing the results I wanted. And so I really started being very mindful of that and prayerful of it even. And that was just at that point, I started seeing things pop up in my Facebook feed, honestly, and like you said, we never knew each other prior to me signing up with you. We knew people that each
Yeah.
other knew, and we're connected that way. Kind of, all of the apostolic churches are just kind of, it's a small
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody who knows somebody else, but I really truly believe God opened those doors for, you just to, it came up in my feed and I thought, I'm just going to talk to her and just see. And I saw it come up a couple times before I actually contacted you and all. And, so I signed up with you. I think it was March or maybe the end of February of last year, possibly somewhere in there. And, this past, was it in February? It was February. I got to go back to the prison and it just was such a full circle moment, reflecting on that was kind of what set in motion, me wanting to be on a better health journey. And, I'm by far, not close to what my end goal is, but all of the progress, I could see the progress I had made, just being more comfortable in my own skin, feeling better because I had more endurance and more stamina to just push myself, even to the point of I texted you the next day after having been in prison all day on Sunday and going back to work on Monday and saying, you know what? I'm not exhausted today. Like, I'm tired, but it's such a difference of how I would have felt, even a year ago if I had done the same thing. And it just really brought full circle that it was something that was so needful for me. And seeing, even though I'm not, at where my, end goal is, the progress that I've made and the changes that I've made for the better just in this past year, and the difference that they've made for me, and the confidence I have in myself more than what I've ever had before. It really makes it's a mental thing as much as a physical thing. And that's what I think we forget about, that sometimes, the mental aspect of just taking better care of ourselves, not for vanity's sake, but just so that we're able to minister to others like we need to, and do the things that life requires out of us, and how much better it makes you feel to be able to do that. So that's kind of the story behind that, and how we got together and got signed up. So
I love that. I love that. And of course, you just recently went to Princess Within, so that was where you were texting me. So of course I remember that. It was just a couple weeks ago. And yeah, I mean, just being able to say, I'm more confident in what I'm doing. I'm more confident in the way that I feel. I'm more confident in the way that I can minister. I mean, those are huge pivotal moments. And then going back to work, and you went right back to work, and it's like, okay, we were prepared for that week. We knew that it was going to be, a week that was more tired, but it wasn't like, okay, now I need a whole week to recoup from
right.
Right.
Exactly. I bounced back so much better, and just was able to do so much, just get back to normal instead of, being exhausted for another week or 2 weeks. I was tired, but it wasn't the same as what it would have been at all. It was so much better and so much more improvement, in what I was able to do. So.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about progress. Like, you're like, okay, I'm not at my end goal yet. And, it's good. I don't know that anybody ever gets to their end goal.
Right. Right.
I'm going to talk about that for just a second, just in general for people that are listening. If you are waiting on an end goal weight, or you think that this weight is the goal, that's not the goal. The goal is to improve along the way, and your weight will catch up and will fall in line as it should. But you need to have your sights set on things other than just an end goal weight. And Wendy, I think you've done just a fantastic job of that. And you have endurance in this race, in the race of your health, because you notice the progress markers as they've come along. I mean, of course, your weight has dropped down. We've put on a ton of muscle, and we'll get into that in a little bit too. But you've also appreciate these progress markers that you're seeing along the way from a physical standpoint. And like you said, how they affect you mentally as well.
Right. I remember when we had our first consultation, and we talked about it, I told you I was going to go ahead and sign up. One thing you told me is like, this didn't happen to your body overnight, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. And we've talked about that so many times since, about keeping that in mind and not getting discouraged by the little bit of everyday things that might happen. Things get messed up, we get off track here and there. But remembering what our goal truly is to be healthy, and to set myself up for the rest of my life to be able to make better decisions about my health, and be informed about those decisions, instead of just trying to wildly guess, well, I think this is better for me, than that is better for me, but knowing how to actually interpret the things that I am reading on labels, and knowing what's better for me and what's not. So it all goes together.
Let's talk. So we talked about reading labels. So Wendy, this is so. Coaching is fun. First of all, I'm just going to say that the coaching is fun. I have these aha moments, but Wendy noticed that she was like, 1 week we were focused on fat loss a season, and your scale wasn't moving 1 week, and we were like, maybe it's too much sodium. And you were like, maybe it is too much sodium. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look. And so we started looking at what you were eating, and there was a sauce. Tell about that sauce that blew our mind.
So it was the Frank's Red Hot sauce, and the recipe was, on the surface, because Frank's Red Hot, you think it has no fat in it. It doesn't have any carbs in it, and it's flavorful. So a lot of people I know use that, during fat loss. And we got to looking, though, and the sodium read on my full recipe, where I was, tracking it every day, read that my sodium just for that one meal was, what was it, like 6,600 milligrams? Something like that. And I was like, there's no way that's right. So So
And I
we
agreed. I was
investigated.
like, that's
Yeah,
not
we were both like, there's no way. You must have clicked the wrong thing when you
right.
tracked that. And so I got to digging a little further and figured out that the thing that was bumping it up was that sauce. And I thought, I'm
Yeah.
going to go home and look at the actual bottle and make sure, because I don't know if I scanned it or if I just plugged it in. And so I got home and I did. And it was that sauce that um, it had by itself, without everything else in the recipe, it had over 5,000 milligrams of sodium, which is insane. And those are, we just take for granted, oh, it doesn't have any fat, it doesn't have any carbs. It must be okay to add as much as I want. And it
Yeah.
wasn't,
No.
and like by far, it was not like not
No,
okay.
it was a huge amount. But it's like little problem solving like that along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, and I know that like fat loss is everybody's goal and healthy is everybody's goal, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to have these moments along the
Mm-hmm.
way so that okay, well, if I'm swelling and I'm doing everything the same, what's
Right.
different? And there's
Right.
been so many times because you've had multiple jobs, or not multiple, because that makes you sound like you had 5 jobs. You've had a job change. She's not a teenager.
Yes.
She's had a big job change, and we've
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of sickness, battled with COVID, at least
Yes.
once that we know of. And so being able to identify these what seems like small changes but make big impacts has been huge for you because we've
Right.
really uncovered, we've got the big rocks down.
Mm-hmm.
But we've started to uncover these smaller things that really make a big difference, like sleep. If you want to talk about sleep and just some of the ahas that you've had there with that too.
Definitely. Rest, I have come to find out not just quantity, but quality of rest,
Yes.
and, just about any time that we see me in a fat loss phase, we know to start troubleshooting because we have learned that my rest makes a huge difference. I don't necessarily always get 8 hours of sleep,
Mhm.
but when I'm not getting at least 5 to 6 hours of really restful sleep, it makes a huge difference on the scale during that week. Even for 1 or 2 days, I can miss sleep or not sleep well for whatever reason. And, for the next few days, I'm gonna be able to tell it in my body, and not just by the way I feel, but the scale reflects that. So, it's something that I've learned that I have to make that a priority for myself for my health's sake. And it's one of those that's up there, it's a priority that's up there. And that's something that we've discovered, as we've gone along this past year, is that's important for me. And, it really will set me back if I don't be mindful of it. So that, among other things, that's just something it's my body doesn't respond well. So,
No, your
at
body
all.
tells us it's like, hey, I need some sleep. And the same with stress. We've identified too that
Mm-hmm.
there are some things that don't appear as stress. I think I'm going to date myself with this, but I think stress is always like that Kathy comic strip. Like
Yes.
like,
Yes.
and you think about that
I
person
haven't thought about that in forever.
like just and people that walk around and you just know you're like, Lord, they are always so stressed.
Right.
We all know
Right.
that person. But because Wendy's been so consistent, Wendy, because you've been just so good at like understanding more about your body and just
Mm-hmm.
showing up week after week after coaching, we found out that your body presented stress in a different way.
It does. I will see so much more fatigue the weeks where I'm really, there's a lot going on at work, or even, personally in family, issues with that. My body, I fatigue so easily with stress, and just, it makes it where it is a push to get to the gym, on the days that I'm supposed to get up and get going, and just, even just walking, much less like a good, solid workout, we've also seen that it causes a lot more, swelling. I retain fluid more when I am stressed out. So it's little things like that, you really, I've become more self-aware of, like, hey, why is my body doing this? Well, this is why, because this and this and this were going on. And so I've learned to identify those things so that I'm able to deal with them and cope with them better, so that my body's able to respond better to it. And all of that works hand in hand. Again, go back to it's a mental thing as much as a physical thing, and it really, truly, it affects what I'm doing, with trying to be healthier or trying to, eat right. And it's not only the things that I'm eating, it's the other things that are around me and affecting me mentally that really make a big difference for me. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And so then when we see that stress, and it took us a while to put our fingers
yeah,
on that.
yeah, yeah,
And I've done the same thing too. I'm like, I'm not stressed. I'm cool as a cucumber. I keep this family together. I keep
right.
them rolling. I
Yes,
am the glue. And then I had lab work drawn, and that lab work was like, you are not the glue.
right,
You
right.
are falling apart.
Well, working in a stressful field like I do, I really thought because I kind of internalized things,
Hmm.
I guess. I, for so long, thought that I was dealing well with the stress of it. Not talking about it, just letting it wash off my back. I have learned in the past year, I cry more now at work than I ever have. Because I have learned I have to let it out. So
Yeah.
when something does affect me deeply, I have to allow my emotions out instead of holding them in. And that's a release of stress for me. And I know we'll probably get into talking about it later, but another big thing we've learned is a good stress relief is getting to the gym,
Yeah.
even on those days where I don't feel like it and I'm tired and I've had a lot going on. If I make getting to the gym, even if I'm just there for 30 minutes and
Yeah.
make that a priority, it makes a huge difference on my mental health and then in turn on my physical health and what my body's responding to as far as with food and everything. So it's something that I have really, truly learned better coping mechanisms for all those things in this past year. Big time.
Absolutely. Big
Hugely.
time.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's made such a difference. And so you let yourself, you've got coping mechanisms, we use those, we put those
Hmm.
into play, and then it's like, okay, now we can move on to the other things because we know what this is. Or if we start to see it creep up, it doesn't get to this place where it's out of control. It's like,
Right.
okay, let's Ooh, I did a reel the other day about red flags. You've got to know your personal red flags.
Definitely. And that's, I have learned that about myself. And my anxiety comes out in a different way. Like most
Yeah.
people won't ever realize my anxiety comes out as just being kind of irritable, like irritable about little things that shouldn't be irritating to me. That's
Yeah.
how I show my anxiety a lot of times. And I have seen that improve a lot now that I know how to let that anxiety out and how to deal with it better. By being more physically active, getting on in the gym, doing the weight training that I've, learned to do in the past year and pushed myself on and doing the cardio, all of those things work hand in hand and it has helped me understand how to cope with that and to let that go to where the anxiety doesn't build up that much anymore and
Yeah.
the stress doesn't get to me and I'm able to get past it, deal with it, not ignore it and push it to the side, but deal
Yeah.
with it,
Yeah.
and allow myself to get over it and then move forward.
Yeah. And
So,
walk through
and
it.
yeah,
So
not letting it build up.
So let's talk about strength training. Let's get into that.
Yes.
So when Wendy first started, I just love this stuff. So when Wendy first started, I love talking to people and seeing just how far you've grown and just more to come. But
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Wendy was pretty sedentary. Didn't walk a lot, didn't move a lot. That was just what life was. And so
Hmm.
we started, and we first just started with food. We really got in there and
Hmm.
worked on food, and we may come back and talk about that, because we had so many ahas about
Yes.
food
Yeah.
in the beginning. And now it probably seems easy for you, but you didn't even know what a macro was when we first
No.
started.
No, no. I'd heard the term. There was a lot of nurses that I worked with that were doing, different fitness programs locally.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to have to deal with that. I had done Weight Watchers, and so I was just of the mindset, just tell me what I can and can't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, obviously, I am the type of person that the more I know about something and understand it, the better I'm going to stay with it.
Yeah.
And so educating myself about it this past year has made such a huge difference in my understanding of why this works as opposed to that not working,
Mhm.
and really why it makes a difference and why, hey, I feel better because I'm eating this and I'm full, but I could eat this and not be full and still feel just awful. We talked about that this week. Some of the we had a day where my office fed us,
Yeah.
and I went in and tried to make good choices about what I was eating, and I felt fine. I felt good after everybody around me was talking about how stuffed they were, and how they were miserable. And I was like, we ate the same food though. I mean, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really made a difference in just the choices that I make and educating myself about why this choice is the better choice, as opposed to the things that I was doing before. So
Yeah.
it's a huge difference. Huge.
Learning, and you've not changed. I think this is important for people to know. You do have to change some things. You cannot continue in
Hmm.
anything that you're doing. If you want to make changes in your life in any aspect, you can't keep doing what you're doing. You've got to make some changes. But you've been able to maintain the same social life. You've been
Hmm.
able to help with your parents. You're able to maintain the same meals at home. Like you've been able to have some changes, but it's not been a radical, just completely
No,
throw everything out the window
not at
type.
all. It's been
Yeah.
something where I've been able to fit it into my life. I haven't had to completely change things and make most things better because of it
Yeah.
instead of making it harder. I do have to, the adjustment at first was different because more thought had to go into it. But the more you just stick with it and the more you're consistent with it, it's not even a thought anymore. It's just part of your life and you integrate it into it. And it's not radically changed, my schedule or anything like that. I think the hardest part probably was adding in the gym, the gym time. But other than that, it's just it just fits in
Just,
where I've worked around it.
yeah.
So it hadn't made anything too drastic for sure.
Been just some upgrades and tweaks to things you were
Hmm.
already doing.
Yep.
Just making some tweaks.
Right. Making a different grocery list, was a big thing,
Yeah.
and just making sure I had the time that I'm getting done. And when I'm done with work, I head straight to the gym,
Yeah.
and that's what's works best for me right now is to get there in the evenings after work and get it done before
Yeah.
I go home. So,
So
it's
when
just,
Wendy first, yeah, so when she first started, she was sedentary, not walking a lot, definitely not
hmm
going to the gym. And so we worked on food first. We were like, okay, let's get this down. Let's start feeling good, which did not take her long at all. She like hit the ground running with that. And then we transitioned into working out. And at first you were working out from home. Do you remember this? Do you even remember
yes,
that? Yeah.
yes.
So you were working
So,
out from home. So talk a little bit about how that circle of life.
So I, having never been a gym person, I was homeschooled. I didn't participate like in sports or anything. And so all of it was just new to me. And I'd always kind of been a little afraid of the gym because it was just intimidating to me.
Sure.
I had tried a couple different times, like when curves gyms were a big thing,
Yes, yes, the
but it was
circuit.
never anything that yes, just going in the circle. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I remember
Um,
that.
but it was never anything that I had stuck with and really gotten comfortable with. I had always walked at home. Just we've always lived out in the country, so I've always had like plenty of space to be able to walk, and that type of thing. So that had been pretty much the extent, with the exception of like a private gym going to kickboxing school years ago, which I loved, but shut down. So anyway, I had kind of gotten comfortable with doing some cardio at the gym, but when we really started talking, and I knew that it was coming, we started talking about doing the weight training. I was like, I just don't think I can get over to that part of the gym.
Yeah.
And so Liv was very patient with me and was like, well, let's just try this. And so I got a little bench and some 5-pound weights and started working at home with it and just got more comfortable, I think, moving my body in that way and doing something that I had not ever done before, and never, had any experience with. And so I got into doing that at home, and the problem with it was there was always a distraction at home for me.
Mhm.
There was always something else I needed to be doing, or I would sit down and get comfortable before I would get it done, and then it just wouldn't happen. And that's one thing that I learned about myself through this past year is I have to just go ahead and get it done and prioritize it before I do other things. And so Liv kind of had a talking to with me about it. She's like, I promise you nobody's going to care. Just get in there. It'll be okay. Nobody's watching you. And so I finally eased my way over into the weights section of the gym after a lot of needless mental turmoil over it. But
Yes.
yeah, and I just got in there and immediately, like, it was like something clicked.
Yeah.
Really and
Immediately for
truly,
you. I
it
mean, it was
clicked,
like,
and I was like, wow, I
yeah.
actually like this. I actually love this, And my body started responding to it so much
Oh,
better after being consistent with it. And I could tell such a in like my monthly update pictures. I don't know if you remember the first one after I really truly started doing the weight training, the difference, not necessarily in inches, but just in my body composition and the way
yeah.
that my posture changed
Your posture,
dramatically in the
your
first
posture
month.
was major.
Yes, yes, major change in just 4 weeks time.
Yeah.
And and since then, just being consistent with it and staying with it, it has really made a difference in the way I sit at my desk.
Hmm.
At work, the way that I drive, because a majority of my day is spent driving around, from patient to patient,
Yeah.
and it really has made a difference in soreness levels. We were actually talking about that this week in check-in, having
Yeah.
shoulder pain in my left shoulder, and my hip, and how much that's improved since I started strength training and strengthening those areas to where I
Mhm.
don't even notice pain in those areas anymore. So big, huge difference in just how, getting myself out of my comfort zone and then realizing that it's something that I actually really enjoy.
Yeah.
I now enjoy weight training more than I enjoy cardio.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. You're so
um
good at it too. And I remember you doing it at the house and you were liking it at the house, but like you said,
mhm,
all of us can get so distracted with things at
mhm.
the house, with we've got to tend to this person or that person, or the dreaded, you come home from work and you sit on the couch. That couch just sucks you in,
It
like
does.
it's like as
After
soon
a
as you
long hard
sit
day
down,
it does.
yeah, it is game over on that couch.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, but I want to applaud you, Wendy, because you did not push against the grain on that for very long.
Yeah.
Like you, again, and that comes from just like self identifying. You were like, okay, I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to go, like, let's just see. And I mean, it was like session 1 or 2, you were hooked.
Yeah, yeah. It was like you said, one of those aha moments that I was like, wow, this
Yeah.
is such a huge difference. And just learning, we have, I think, or I did anyway, had like this preconceived idea that if you go to the gym, you have to go and be there for 2 hours and be
Yes.
dripping sweat, and so sore you can't move the next day to actually accomplish anything.
Right.
And learning, again, going back to educating myself about what actually really works,
Mm-hmm.
and not injuring myself by doing
Yes.
those types of workouts, but by doing just consistent, good, workouts to where you feel like you've done something, but you're not killing yourself over it. And I can be at the gym an hour maybe, and that's between adding in some cardio too most
Mm-hmm.
nights, or
Yeah.
getting in the tanning bed or something most nights.
Yeah.
But I'm not working out for that full hour for sure while I'm there. It's the other stuff too, but yeah, and that's all you have to do. And I've seen such a huge difference already in just the way my clothes fit. It may not necessarily be that I've gone down very many more sizes yet, but they fit different.
Yeah.
My t-shirts, I told you, my t-shirts are fitting differently, and I can tell such a huge difference in those things in the what my body is doing since starting the weight training. It's been just a huge eye opener for me to
Huge.
understand how beneficial it is.
Yeah, so
Big
it
time.
helps you. It helps you from that stress standpoint. Going back to that, so it helps from the stress standpoint.
Oh,
So
definitely.
helps you with body confidence.
Mhm.
So you're more confident in your body. It helps you
Mhm.
in your job because you're doing hospice things like
Mhm.
that. So
Right.
so many benefits. But you hit the nail on the head because the old concept, or even current concept, really for so many people is I've
Mhm.
just exactly when they think of the gym, they think of an hour, 2 hours, 5 times a week, sweat like the gym has to be the end all be all of
Right.
everything. You have to
Mhm.
live there in order to be healthy.
Right.
But we're going, we aim for 3 times a week. If we can get
Mhm.
there 3 times a week and at least do, 15 minutes of cardio, 30 minutes of strength, 10 minutes of tanning bed,
Yeah.
like, but that's the thing is it doesn't, and a lot of times if you're not doing cardio, yeah, you're a little sweaty, but it's nothing that you can't change clothes and go do something else if you want to.
No, no, for sure. Like, and I can feel it. That's the thing. And I remember, still learning about it. I don't know if you remember me texting you when I was like, am I supposed to be increasing my weight or my reps?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
you're
yeah,
like, definitely increase your reps first.
yeah.
And just being consistent with what you're doing and not trying to kill yourself and end up injuring yourself, which I've seen
Right.
so many people do.
Mm-hmm.
by overdoing it, because you know what your body's responding to. You don't have to keep, I'm not trying to be like out here being a bodybuilder or anything like that. So there's no reason to keep pushing those limits, doing the things that I see are working, and then building slowly off of that. Because, going back to what we were talking about earlier, this is a long term goal that I have. It's not something that I'm expecting to, you know, have like such a huge, my transformation pictures I know are not just, they're going to be further than a year apart. You see all those transformations of people, this is what happened in a year because of this. And and that I'm okay with that, because I want it to be long term. I want to do it the right way. And we haven't really talked about it, but one thing we talked about so much was building the good habits. Bad habits are so easy to get into, and they're so hard to break, and good habits are so hard to build and to create in your life. And that's why it's such a long-term goal for me, and why I try to remind myself to have patience in the journey, because it's a long-term goal. I want these good, healthy habits to go with me for the rest of my life, and not just be about a number on the scale.
Exactly. And people talk about on this podcast, about it being a long journey for everybody. But the long journey view is that we just continue to get better and better.
Right. Yeah.
And to me, a long journey, and I've never really said this before, so it's just kind of hit me as we're talking. But to me, so all of you Live Heal Nutrition clients that are listening, we need to all talk about this. But to me, a long-term journey is a constant yo-yo journey. That's a long-term, never-ending, constant, just yo-yo journey. And people will stay on that forever. And they don't look at that as long-term, right? Their life.
Right.
But they yo-yo their whole life, to where what we're doing here and what we do within our coaching is long-term, but long-term with plans, and long-term with
consistency,
and long-term with consistency. So really, every journey is long-term.
Yeah.
Right? Every journey is long-term, but you can decide if you want the long-term to be the yo-yo, and that's yo-yo with the scale, yo-yo with your mentality, yo-yo with, how you speak to yourself, or if you want your long journey to be one that you consistently make progress week over week.
Yes.
Over week.
Yep.
And so I think that some people do get turned off by, this is a long process. Taking care of our bodies is what we're doing for the long term anyway. But
we're stuck with this body for the rest of our lives. We need to take care of it. That made me think of, I went to nursing school, a little bit later in life than a lot of people decide to go to college. And it was something I had always wanted to do. And I just kept putting it off, even though it was something that I wanted to do, because I thought, it's going to take so long. It's going to take so long to do it. But finally one day I was just like, you know what? The time's going to pass anyway. The time is passing anyway. Why not make progress towards my goals while the time passes? And that is what is something so simple, just to realize, a simple realization like that. But, here I am now, I'm 10 years into that journey, and I have all of this experience and so much that I have learned and been able to do because I made that decision. You know what? The time's passing anyway. Let's do something good with the time instead of just sitting here. And it's exactly what you're talking about. No matter what, we're stuck in this body, so we may as well go ahead and start taking better care of it and being better stewards of it, and doing the things that are going to improve our lives. Going to school improved my life when I finally made that decision. A year ago when I signed up with you, I'm just a year into this journey, and it's already made so many improvements, and things that are going to last, and that's what we want, right? Is to build a foundation that is going to set us up for success. And that's what we're doing.
Look at us. That's so good. Right? We just blew this podcast up. We just blew this up.
For sure.
Welcome to mine and Wendy's one-on-ones.
Welcome to our TED Talk.
Welcome to our weekly TED Talk that we have together. But
every week.
But you've got to have these realizations, and you've got to enjoy it, and you've got to know that what you're doing is beneficial. And I'm really been hitting on this with everybody I've been talking to lately. But, I'm 45. I'll be 46 in a couple of months. And you're in your 40s. And the importance of strength training at any time, but especially if you are in perimenopause, before you hit menopause, That's a whole new rodeo when you hit
Yeah.
menopause. And if you
Yeah.
are listening and you are in menopause, it is not too late for you. But strength training and eating quality food a majority of the time is one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself, because those two things help you manage the stress. So managing stress, these things are some of the biggest gifts you can give yourself before you get into menopause.
Oh, for sure. And also my mother was just diagnosed with osteoarthritis.
Mm,
So
yeah.
we have a history of degenerative joint disease in our family, degenerative disc disease, all kinds of arthritis, in addition to the other things I talked about earlier. And so just knowing that, I'm doing everything that I can to help myself in the future.
Mhm.
I don't know what the future brings. I don't know, what it holds, but I do know, I'm in the medical field. I understand that these things tend to be genetic. They tend to also go along with the path that I was going down in life, in
Mhm.
addition to being genetic.
Yeah.
I see these people, and it just, I worked in a cardiac unit for about 6 years, and seeing, people that had uncontrolled hypertension, uncontrolled diabetes for years and years and years, and the toll that it took on their bodies, the toll that I see that it's taken on my mother's body.
Yeah.
It just, all of those things just kind of slowly were waking me up, and then finally I hit that point where I was like, I have to do something
Yeah.
to maybe I may not be able to completely hold it off, but I can at least set myself up to not have the effects of it like I see in people. Every day
Yes.
of my life I see it
Every
close
day.
up,
Yeah. That
close up and
preventative.
personal. So,
That
you know,
preventative and the strength training is so good, like we said, from a mental standpoint, from a stress standpoint,
oh,
but
for sure.
from a muscle building standpoint. So many women just think that it's going to be a big bulky muscle,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
not. It's just making sure you've got strong bones so that you can walk up and down the steps when you get older,
Hmm.
and so that you can have more mobility. And we think, well, we've always got time, but
Yeah,
really, you start losing muscle mass at age 30, and so
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
it's
And
just
then you wake
time.
up and you're about to turn 40, and you're like, oh my goodness.
I know. Then you're like, and then I'm like, 50 don't seem too old, baby. And I'm like, well,
Right?
it used to be archaic. Um, but these things are making a difference too. And one thing, and we don't want to come off as judgmental to people who don't do this because they're just uneducated. They just don't know these things.
Right,
And the people that do fad diets, they do understand that fad diets are not the greatest, but they don't have a concept that other things can work, that a true
right,
balanced lifestyle can work for them.
right.
But there's been many people that you've worked with, or just been in contact with, that have, since you've been on this journey with me,
Yes.
that you've seen them lose weight and then drastically regain this weight that they've lost,
Mm-hmm.
while you have consistently just kept trending down in scale and
Yep.
body composition.
Yes. Yeah. And we talked about, a few years ago, I did the Optivia program.
Yeah.
And I lost weight just very fast, and I felt great. My scrub skirts were falling off me at work almost. If my pockets got too way down, I was really having to be, and it was really fast, but I was hungry all the time, all
Mm-hmm.
the time. And, I lost that fast within about 3 to 4 months. Within another 6 months, I had gained that back and more.
Mm-hmm.
It was expensive. It wasn't setting me up for future success and sustained success by any means. And I think, especially our culture, and we talk about this all the time too, our culture in this country, we want things instant results.
Absolutely.
We don't have patience, and we don't, we just want to see the results, and we don't care how we have to get there.
Right.
And so, being able to take a step back and understand, it is going to take a little while to correct these issues and to build these better habits, but educating yourself along the way about why it's important to have these healthy habits instead of seeing those fast results that, in the end, they don't last.
They don't
And
last.
it makes such a difference. And like I said earlier, the more I can understand about the why behind something, the more likely I am to stick to it. When I really truly see, I have an answer of, this is why we focus on this type of food,
Yeah.
and this is why we focus on strength training, and this is why we might need to focus on cardio here.
Yeah.
It makes such a huge difference to mentally, the days I don't feel like doing it,
Yeah.
do it anyway. Be intentional in the way that you're doing it. Yep.
Well, and that's such a good point because I remember that when we first signed up, I tell every person this when they sign up, I'll say, what the program, and I don't even like to call it program, but that's just what it's what we call it. What it teaches, what it does is I want to educate you. I want you to get to your goals, but I want to educate you because once you learn this, you cannot unlearn it. And so we really just lay in on making sure that you understand what you're doing, and like you said, why you're doing that. Because then when you understand the why, it makes so much more sense. And the days that you're like pushing yourself when the motivation is dry, you know why you need to do it. And so that to me, that's my biggest goal with everybody that I come in contact to is to make sure they understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. And it, then you have no excuses. It's, if you leave it up to open interpretation and you're not really sure why, you're just doing it because you were told, it's a lot easier just to, push it off and not do it that way. So once you don't have those excuses anymore, and that's what it is. It turns in, I have no excuse. I have nobody but myself to blame if I don't do the things that I know because I know how it works now. I know what the benefits are now, and and I don't have those excuses anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what education does.
Yeah, it's empowering. It takes the excuses away, and it takes the gray out of it. I mean, now body isn't always going to respond exactly how we want. It's not going to A plus B doesn't always equal C, but that's where we can get in there and move things around and figure that out together.
Right. Yeah. And it's a constant. It's a constantly educating yourself, constantly figuring out, hey, this isn't working like we hoped it would. So what else can we try in its place? Things like that. And we've done a lot of that over the past year. We even, being in my current, trying to be in a fat loss phase right now, have gone back to, okay, what was working last year? Because, I've had a little bit of stall out, but still, and trying not to be discouraged about it. Okay, what worked before? Things have changed a lot since last year. I'm in a different job. My schedule's different. And so learning those things like, hey, this is what I was doing. So let's try it. Let's go back and just go back to the drawing board sometimes. But, being willing to do that and understand that it's fixable and you can do that instead of just giving up on it. And, being able to dig in a little deeper and really figure out the problems and the whys behind it makes a huge difference. It really does.
So before we wrap up, Wendy, I'm going to let you talk about, when we talk about journey and progress and fun new things, Wendy's got a big goal.
Yes.
She's set, and we have a Facebook group that everybody's in, the clients are in, and we have, if you don't like cottage cheese, you can't be in the group. That's a joke.
No. I'm barely in the group because I can barely have it.
I know, right? But the group has always got something crazy going on. But Wendy has started up like a new initiative. It's one of her goals, and everybody in the group is so excied about it, and we're going to try to get it together. So I think this is indicative of your growth from first starting out. I mean, just a year ago, which, like you said, time is so fast. Time goes so fast. It was just a year ago from, I don't know what a macro is. I'm going to cry, Wendy. I don't know what a macro is. I'm not really moving much. I'm not going to the gym. This is, and let's be honest, I lived there myself. We've all lived there, and so no shame to that. But now, a year later, talk about what goal you've got, which is just such a fun goal. And it just lays out, guys, just how your mindset starts to shift.
Right.
You enjoy taking care of yourself.
Yes. So if anybody knows me for long, they know I love Disney and I love the theme parks. And so a few years ago, when I discovered that Disney marathons were a thing, in the back of my mind, I was like, that would be the most fun thing in the world that I could imagine doing is, being able to run a marathon through a Disney park, and so I started following some Facebook pages and all, and just in the back of my mind, it was like always like a long term, if I ever get healthy, that would be the thing that I would want to do. And so, I guess earlier this year, last year, I had a friend that ran her first half marathon at Disney, and I was just like, you know what? I actually know people who've done it now. It made it seemed like such more of an attainable goal by knowing like this person has run it and that person has done it, And so I talked to Liv after the first of the year, and I made up my mind, a goal of mine, instead of pushing it off and thinking, well, maybe in another few years, you know what? I think I have enough time. I can get ready And so the plan is to run at least the 5K in the Disney Princess half marathon weekend next February. I would like to do the full challenge, which is the 5K, the 10K, and the half marathon. A lot of that depends on registration availability, but it just all of a sudden was like, it's an attainable goal now. It's not something that I can kind of wish for one day and probably never accomplish, but seeing the progress just in this past year and the difference in my body and what my body's able to do and what I'm mentally able to push myself to do, and not push myself back and just push it to the back of my mind because it's not something that I think is possible. So that's the goal, is in February to go, and hopefully as many of our group as we can do it. Be able to do it.
How quick we can be on that internet registration.
Yes.
Force Disney to take our money.
Right? Please take my money.
I know. But I just love that. And I'm so proud of you, Wendy. It is such an honor, truly, to coach you and just to be your friend. And God knows what he's doing when he puts all of us together.
Definitely. Sure. Definitely.
Just to see that goal. I'm planning on it. I got my running shoes ready.
Yes.
So I'm down there if I can get my.
We're trying to learn all the things about what we need to be doing.
Yes. If I can get Disney to take my money.
Yeah.
If you feel like that this is slow or not for you, I mean, I don't think, Wendy, that I've heard anything more perfect than the time is going to pass anyway. And so just making the most of it and believing in yourself and taking a chance on yourself, I think is the biggest step. It's just taking that chance that, you know what, maybe this could be me. You know?
Yeah, maybe it could be me with the before and after picture, finally. Or maybe it can be me finally, feeling like I'm able and capable of running a marathon or a half marathon or even just the 5K, and you think if I hadn't made that choice and that decision a year ago, the path that I was on, I could have been diagnosed with diabetes by now. I could have been diagnosed with high blood pressure by now, but I'm not. It was just a matter of time, though. So it is. The time's going to pass anyway. So what are we doing with it, and how are we trying to set ourselves up for success or failure? Yeah. And it doesn't take much to set ourselves up for failure. So it's just the effort. It's just the effort. Yep.
Well, Wendy, this has been so much fun.
Yes.
Anything else that you want to add on to the end before we wrap anything up?
No, anybody out there who is on the fence about if this would work or not, I promise you, it is beneficial and it is such a blessing. Truly, I do, like you said, I believe God put all of us together, and just the group, even if you don't have anybody in your immediate personal life that is on that same type of journey, the group that we have is so encouraging to each other and so uplifting and such a blessing to be able to it helps on those hard days, those days where you have to push yourself. It helps. I'll send you a text like, hey, I did make it to the gym today. And, if nobody else is celebrating with me, I know Liv's going to celebrate with me, And if you're on the fence about it, I just give it a try. Just do it. Just give it a chance, because it really, it makes all the difference in the world to have somebody, backing you and being that encouragement and that voice of reason sometimes too. That we need. Yeah.
And life is so much better, and it doesn't have to, it's not painful. It's actually fun.
No. You don't have to kill yourself to try to and be healthy. You just have to learn what works for you.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Well, Wendy, thank you so much. You are just a blessing, and this was fun. And the next time that you'll see us before that, because you'll be seeing us around posting about each other. But count on us to be on this marathon. And
yes,
if you are not in coaching and you want to join us in the marathon, we would love to have you.
Yes, that would be so much fun. The more the merrier.
Yeah, the more the merrier. So get in touch with either one of us. We would love to have you in the marathon with us.
Yes.
So as we wrap up today's episode, thanks for listening. You can find tons of recipes. There are blog posts with guides to get you started on my website at www.livehealnutrition.net. You can contact me on Instagram, Facebook. If you've got questions, please reach out to either one of us. We would love to see you just start your health journey and start to feel amazing. Thank you so much for listening today. And thank you again, Wendy. I hope everybody has a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.